You know that thing you don't like to talk about? The one that still stings a little or maybe a lot. Whether it's a failure or a heartbreak or a season that nearly broke you, it can be difficult or maybe even feel impossible to imagine God using you when all you can feel is the weight of what is behind you. So let's talk about how you can let go of the past without pretending like it never happened. But before we dive in, I have a gift for you that goes hand in hand with what we talk about on this podcast. It's called the Clarity Roadmap, and it's only a couple of pages long, so it's super easy for you to digest. This roadmap is going to help you to reflect, to pray, and to take action as you listen along. So grab it at the link in the show notes. If you have ever wondered, how can I let go of the pain, the failure, or the disappointment of the past so I can finally move forward in what God is calling me to do, then I want you to hear me when I say that you are not disqualified and your healing story may very well be the thing that someone else is waiting for. Let's talk about scars for a minute. I have a scar on my right calf where my grandmother's dog bit me when I was little. I was under 10 years old and I still have that scar. I have another scar right above my right eyebrow where I hit my head when a friend who was driving behind me ran into the back of the car that I was driving, and I hit my forehead and cut it, and I have a scar from that. That was when I was in my early 20s. Then I have a big scar on my abdomen from 2 different surgeries that I've had over the last 15 or so years. There's also a scar on the back of my ankle. I still have this scar from where I cut myself the very first time I ever shaved my legs back in 9th grade. And I also have a scar on my knee where I scraped it a million times when I was a child. It would heal up and then I would get into some situation where I would scrape it again and then it would heal and I would scrape it again. I also have other scars on my body, most of them forgotten and many of them now barely visible. And up until recently, the same could not be said of my soul scars. Now I'll explain to you what I mean by soul scars. A couple of years ago, a few years ago at this point, I was in a Bible study group where the topic that we were tackling on one particular night sparked a discussion about baggage from our past. And as we chewed over, this topic about baggage from our past, I thought kind of hit me and stopped me in my tracks. And here was the thought. This was what the thought was. What an ugly mess our scarred up souls must look like. I mean, think about it. If we wore the scars that are on our souls, on our bodies, if those scars that we have on our souls were on our bodies, how horrific would we look? Because I think that soul wounds are the worst. Most physical wounds will heal automatically. Like, we don't really have to do anything to get healed from them, except maybe get stitches or apply dressings or casts or something in the worst cases, right? But generally speaking, our bodies just kind of kick into healing mode when we sustain a wound and just handle it. And then over time, we tend to forget the pain that comes along with the physical wounds. But soul wounds tend to take a long time and they require a lot of effort to heal. And even then, some of us never fully recover from them. In general, I would say that soul wounds are reflected on us by other people, usually by people who we love, who we don't expect to hurt us, and that makes the wounds deeper and it makes the healing process more difficult. I had one like that was inflicted on me that I sustained when I was about 12, I think. No, I think I was about 9 actually. So I was under 10. It came, the blow kind of came unexpectedly, and it was like really harsh. It was really harsh because it came from someone who, at that age and stage of my life, I expected to love me unconditionally and not hurt me on purpose. Of course, also, I was under 10, as I said, so my maturity level also made it difficult for me to process the wound that I sustained. And because I didn't have the emotional tools yet to minimize the destructive effects of this blow that I sustained, right? So, without going into too much detail, and I don't want to call names or anything, but just to give you a visual on how this blow affected me. Imagine a child, someone who's less than 10, so I was about 9, going along, minding my own business, and then enjoying life, when somebody calls my name, calls this child's name from behind, and she spins around all happy and joy, and like spins right into a knockout punch that is like square in her face. And this punch is so powerful that it sends teeth and blood just kind of flying all over the place. That is the best way I can describe the wound that I sustained. It was kind of a breath stealing beat down, and it left me shocked, and it left me reeling at first, and then it left me in a raging anger for a long time. Not an anger where I was like physically raging around the place, but internal turmoil and rage. And then it just plain hurt, and I just felt deeply wounded, because up to that point in my life, that was the biggest emotional hit that I had ever sustained, and that stayed true for the several years afterwards. What made it even worse was that the person who delivered the blow never really acknowledged what they did, and they didn't apologize for it. And that made the road to healing very difficult to walk. To be honest, it took me a good 10 years or more, probably about 10 years actually, to get over it. And my view of the person who wounded me never really recovered. It never quite returned to what it was before. Eventually I got over it, and eventually the soul wound that I sustained scabbed over and healed. Thank God it healed. And I can think of other emotional wounds that I've received, I've sustained, some so deep that they cut to the bone, and I have wondered if I would ever recover. Like, how can I ever recover from this? And some of the wounds I've sustained, the emotional wounds, have been more shallow, more like a nagging paper cut. When you have a paper cut and it doesn't really hurt, but it's just this nagging kind of pain. And I think that if I could see my soul in physical form up to just very few years ago, it would have looked pretty grotesque with the scars that I had. I really used to struggle to get over things, to just let them go and to move on and to forget about them. But I have come to a point where I realize that there is no just getting over, there is no just letting go, there is no just moving on and just forgetting about the emotional wounds that I've received. There's really only forgiveness. I've learned that I have to live in a constant state of genuine forgiveness. Well, actually, I begin even before that. I live in a state of being difficult to offend, so that sustaining an emotional wound becomes difficult, right? Like, I sustain much less emotional wounding because it's hard to offend me now. And maybe I'll talk about that on another episode. But if I do sustain an emotional wound, the only cure, the only healing is forgiveness. And so I've been living in a constant state of genuine forgiveness and constant prayer for God to help me to love the person who hurt me, because love is the antidote to just like everything. It is the antidote to everything. And forgiveness and love are the only things that minimize the depth of the wounds that we sustain in our souls. And they're the only things that heal them in the shortest possible time without bitterness setting in. And they do that without me needing the other person to acknowledge or even apologize for the hurt that I have sustained at their hands. In Isaiah 43, verses 18 to 19, God says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing." That verse is not about pretending that the past didn't happen. It's about not letting the past define your future. Because God is not asking you to erase the story of your past. He's inviting you to rewrite the ending with Him. And so let's talk about how to reframe the story of your past, because letting go does not always mean forgetting about it. Sometimes it means reframing it. So what if the failure that is causing your pain taught you how to lead with compassion? Or what if the disappointment that you felt opened a door to a more aligned opportunity? Like it did for me when my whole old life failed, and I felt like such a flop, and I was disappointed. But really, what it did was open up the opportunity for me to live the life that God always had planned for me, that I had shunned, avoided, and didn't even know what I was missing. And what if reframing means the pain gave you wisdom that you now get to pass on to someone else? Because the past may explain where you've been, but it does not need to dictate where you're going. So let's talk about some practical ways to start letting go of the past. The first thing I want you to do is to name what is still lingering. Like, write it down, no editing, just be honest, write down the truth, or write down the story of the pain that is still lingering with you. And then I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. And the first one is, what am I believing about myself because of this? Right? So when my old life imploded, what I believed was I'm a failure. I look like an idiot. There was so much shame and so much embarrassment and so much hurt. I've been rejected. I had a whole lot of stories that I was telling myself that I believed about myself. So really give yourself some time to think about and to journal about what you're believing about yourself because of this thing that happened in the past, this pain that you're carrying. The second question I want you to think about and to answer is, what truth would I choose to believe about myself if this failure, pain, or disappointment did not get the final say in my story? And then I want you to invite God into this story and into this process. Like, you can just pray, God, help me to see this whole thing the way that you do, and help me to heal, not so that I can forget, but so that I can move forward. So here's where we're landing today. You are not your lowest moment. You are not your biggest failure, and you are not beyond repair. The fact that you're even asking how to move forward from your past pain is evidence that God is already stirring something new inside of you. You're allowing God to stir something new inside of you. He sees the weight of what you're carrying, and he sees how it has shaped you, and he sees the tears that you still don't even know how to name. And he is not asking you to ignore your pain. He is not telling you to get over it and just move on. What he is doing is inviting you to bring the pain to him so he can do something good with it, so he can turn those ashes into joy, right? And turn them into inspiration. Because what you may feel like your pain disqualifies you from, God sees as the very thing He wants to redeem, right? He wants to redeem you using your pain. So yes, letting go of this pain that has defined you up to this point. It may feel scary because it may feel like you're releasing a part of your identity, and it may feel like you are releasing the last piece of something that matters or once mattered very deeply to you. But holding on to it is costing you more than you realize. For example, it is costing you the future that God has planned for you, because you cannot carry it with you into what He has for you. Please know that you are not too broken to be used, and your story is not too messy to be meaningful. Your willingness to let God start to heal you prepares you for what is next. If today's episode has stirred something inside of you, whether it's hope or clarity or even a little bit of a nudge from God, then please do not forget to download the Clarity Roadmap. It's a free guide that's designed to give you a quick jump start out of feeling stuck. You can print it, pray through it, or use it as a journaling companion if you want to. Remember, please, that you don't have to have all the answers. You only need your one next step, and this free roadmap is a great place for you to start. To get it, all you need to do is go to the link in the show notes.